Hey guys, Alton here. I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel and to our 5th episode of our Ethical Hacking for Beginners series. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Metasploit to exploit our Windows XP machine in our hacking lab. So in our previous video, I showed you how to use Nessus. We found vulnerabilities. We're going to take some vulnerabilities, or at least one specific vulnerability, input that into Metasploit, find the associated exploit, and get into our Windows XP system. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. Let's switch over to my screen and let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and let's get started. So I have my Kali machine up and running and my Windows XP machine up and running. So we're only going to try to exploit and get into our XP machine, so there's no need to have the other systems up and running. So we're going to use a framework called Metasploit to get into our XP machine. And one of the goals with this is we're going to try to execute several different commands, and I have them listed here. So before we get into all that, I'll just kind of go over what these commands are. So this one will give us our system information. The ifsconfig, well, you know what that one is. That's going to give us the IP configuration. Idle time is going to tell us how long the system's been idle, meaning how long somebody has been away from the system and hasn't inputted anything into it. Get system is going to escalate our privileges, if it works, up to system administrator level privileges. Hash dump, well, like it said, it's going to dump the hashes of the passwords. This is going to give us a list of the webcams, and this will allow us to stream the webcam if it works. So one of the goals with this is I want to actually use this, and let me go to the control panel because I already have my webcam, my secondary webcam up and running. But if I go to, and let's see, where is it in here? We need to go to the cameras. So scanners and cameras, USB video device. And there you go. So I have a secondary webcam right here that you can see me in addition to this right here. And so the goal is to get access to this webcam, and it's one of the things that people talk about with systems that have vulnerabilities, that you really should protect your webcam to protect your privacy. So I have that set up here. So let's go ahead and let's just double check that the IP address hasn't changed. So IP5. So 192.168.0.5. What we can do and what we should do when we get onto here. So first thing we should always run, personally, I think we should do an if config and an IP config on the Windows system in our test environment. But in our Linux system, do an if config just to verify what our IP address is, and just do a simple nmap scan. And we'll do it on the entire subnet, on the 192.168.0.0 subnet, just to verify that we still see that .5 system. And the 5 system is here, and then we can go a bit further. So I'll just say to do an SV on that system. And we'll do the top 10 ports. And again, we've already done this, but you know, it's always good just to double check, and there we go. We still see the Microsoft machine. So we can go ahead and we can get out a terminal, and let's open up our Nessus scan, because we're going to use our Nessus scan as our guide to determine what exploit we're going to use. And before we get to that, actually, one thing that I do want to do is I want to open terminal back up, and I want to get back on the Windows machine as well. I want to install something called sec lists. These are lists that we can use to crack passwords and usernames. So we're going to do an apt-get install sec lists, and this is going to install the security lists. And let me go ahead and just close this out, and I want to show you some other things that I wanted to mention before we actually looked at the vulnerability. So what we're going to do once this is completely done is we're going to go into the XP machine, and we're going to add some additional usernames and passwords. Why? Because when we break into the system, I want to get a hash dump of the usernames and the hashes of their passwords so we can crack them in a later video using a tool called John the Ripper. So what this is doing right now on our Kali system, if I go into the file structure, so I'll go to other locations, this computer, we're going to go to the root area, we're going to go to the user folder, and then we're going to go to share, and then in here, once that is completely done, it's going to install a new folder called setlist. And it hasn't created it yet, so we'll just wait. So again, this is actually saying it's going to take 20 hours. For some reason, the connection is really slow to this. So let me try it again and see if we can get a faster connection. There might be some sort of an issue connecting to Kali. I may actually have to boot up one of my other systems, one of my other virtual machines. Let's see if this one goes a bit faster than the other one. And this one still says 13 minutes. So we're going to let this work, and it says it's now down to 7 minutes. We'll see what happens. I'm going to pull in VirtualBox, and I'm going to load up one of my other virtual machines as well, because I want to be able to take a look at the setlist just for some reason if this isn't going to work the way that I want it to work. So let's go ahead and let's load up another system. But while this one is working, let's talk about Metasploit. Let's talk about the Metasploit framework. One of the best ways to understand the framework is to drill down into the directory. And we're already in the shared directory, so we can go into the Metasploit framework subfolder. And it helps you understand how this is designed. And let me see if I can get this. There we go. So we're in the Metasploit framework, and the way that it works, and again, I'm only going to do this from a very high level perspective, is things are put into modules. And these modules are broken up into different categories. There are auxiliary modules, encoder modules, evasion modules, exploits, NOPs, payloads, and post. In this video, and for this beginner series, we're really just going to focus in on the exploits and the payloads. The other things here, I recommend that you review them and search what they mean on your own, but they all serve a specific purpose. The exploits, like their name implies, if we drill into here, you're going to notice that there's exploits for a variety of different things. So that's a very logical structure design. And you're going to notice down here at the bottom, we have Windows. So if you have things like Windows, Unix, Linux, Firefox, FreeBSD, Android, Apple iOS, it's all structured based upon the operating system. So we'll drill into Windows, and then in here, again, it's structured again based upon protocols and different things that we can exploit. So the firewall, FTP, games, IMAP, all sorts of different things. And then same thing if we go back to modules, there's something called payloads. So there's exploits and there's payloads. And an instructor, a course that I took, I forgot his name, but he explained this very well. So you think of the exploit as if you think of a missile, the exploit is the missile, but the payload is the actual thing that does the damage inside that missile. So the missile, think of it as a body. It has an engine. It flies, but within inside of it, there's a payload, which is the bomb. So think of the payload here as the malware. The exploit gets us to the system into it, and the payload is what actually allows us to exploit it. And so there are a variety of different payloads, and I'm not going to get into singles versus stagers and stages, but just know that there are 3 different types of payloads. That's really beyond the scope of this beginner free series on YouTube. We're really going to focus in on just really with this Metasploit framework in the modules. We're just going to focus in on the payloads, and we're going to focus in on the exploits. So let's go back to here. And let's actually take a look at this and see how we're doing. It's still at 74%. So while it's going, we'll let it continue to run for another minute. At the same time, I'm going to take a look at, and let's go back to here, and let's take a look at, we'll go ahead and slide this over. Let's go back to Nessus. So there is a specific vulnerability that I want to utilize. So let's take a look at this. And the one that I want to utilize is the one that we already looked at. So the MS08-067. So we're going to click in there and let that load into the browser. And once that loads into the browser, if we scroll down, it shows that we can exploit it specifically with Metasploit, and that's why I want to try to utilize this one and see if this one works first. So we're going to keep this here. We're going to go back to our terminal, and it's getting close. It's unpacking the security list, so we are getting close to the point where we can actually browse through them, and then we can get onto our XP machine and we can add in some usernames and passwords. Now, the reason that I want to use sec lists is because I want to use specific lists that are common usernames and passwords to come up with some new accounts. So we'll go into here, we'll go into user accounts, we'll get ready. I don't know why this is throwing an Internet Explorer error, but let's just go ahead and continue. And we'll go ahead and we will add some new accounts once this is 100% finalized. And now it's finally done. Okay, so let's close out terminal. Let's pull this over here onto this side. And let's actually just make this, we'll make it half the size, and that way we can have that, and then we can have the windows on the other side. So let's minimize that. Let's minimize that for now. And we're in the share. I want to get out of there, and we'll go back into there just in case we need to allow it to refresh. And then we'll scroll down to sec lists. There we go. So the security lists are installed, and what you're going to notice is that we have passwords and we have usernames. So let's go into usernames, and we can just choose one of these. So let's say top usernames short list. Let's open that up, because again, we can use this specific list when we look to crack those usernames and password hash combinations. Let's go to passwords, and let's look for one that is a very similar one. Let's actually go to leaked databases, and let's take a look at, do they have the RockU ones in here? Let's do the RockU 10. So we have both of those. Let me pull those onto this side, and let me actually do this instead. Okay, so for the username, let's just add some in. So we will just simply, we'll make it very simple. So let's create an account. We will call another one of them, we'll just call them root. Again, this isn't realistic, but you know what? I want to make sure, and we'll make this one another administrator as well. And then we'll give them a password of ABC123. And we'll need to go in here, create a password. All right, so now that account is password protected, and let's go back to here and let's add a new account. We'll just simply call them, we'll call them Puppet. And we'll make this one limited, and then we'll give them a password of, we'll just do I love you. Why not? Just for fun. And let's see if I can do a Control V into here. Alright, so now we have, if I go back, we have 3 different accounts, and that's going to give us more than one username and password to crack on this system. So now we're done with this system. Let's go ahead and minimize it. And I don't need this other Kali system loaded anymore, so let me go ahead and log in real quick and shut it down. And I'll go ahead and power that off, get back to our other system, and close these out because we don't need those security lists anymore, because we're not going to do that in this video. We're not going to utilize them. And now let's get into Metasploit 15 minutes later. So I know there was a lot of stuff that we had to do to get to this point, but trust me, we needed to do that stuff. So to open up Metasploit, simply type in MSF console. Now, some of you may have heard that you can also use a database as well, so you can spin up a database service to run before you load this up, but you don't need to, not for what we're doing today. I think we're perfectly fine with what we have. So let's open up our browser, and we're going to search specifically for this terminology. So Metasploit's very simple. Simply search for the exploit. And what you're going to notice is if it finds it, it'll show us what the exploit is, the date that it was disclosed, and the ranking. So they have multiple different rankings for different exploits. Let me actually just do a search for something very vague. Search for SMB, and let's make this full screen. And you're going to notice, and I want to just point out that the rankings, you'll notice there's normal ranking, there's good, there's manual, there's average, there's excellent, there's great. The higher up it is in the score, the higher the likelihood that it's going to work and that it's not going to crash the system. So let's go back to search MS08-067. Let's actually clear the screen and get it up to the top of the screen. One thing that I do want to mention, before you exploit a system, again, don't exploit anything that's not your own, that's not on your own network and it's not your own system. Before you exploit one of your virtual machines, take a snapshot. And why is that? Well, because you could potentially crash the system by running an exploit. Sending an exploit and a payload to it, you potentially could crash the system, so you want to take a snapshot. All right, so how do we use this exploit? Well, we simply type in use and the name of the exploit. And again, our little shortcut is just that center wheel on our mouse. Click and make sure that I'm in here, of course, and I'm not on a different screen. Click there, hit enter. And now we are using that exploit. You'll notice that now it says, and let's actually increase the size on this a little bit. Now you're going to notice that after we said use it, it says that we are using this exploit Windows SMB MS08_067_ net API. So we're not done yet. Now we need to use a payload. Remember I said you have to have an exploit and a payload combined. So we're going to tell Metasploit to show us the available payloads for this exploit, and there's a lot. And the one that we are going to use, and we'll do our shortcut method to use a payload. To use a payload, we say set payload, and then we choose the payload. So it's not like exploits. With exploits, you say use and then the exploit. With the payload, you have to say set and then the payload. We are going to use the Meterpreter. So this is the built-in Meterpreter shell built into exploit. And the one that I'm going to use is a reverse TCP/IP. I'm not going to get into the details of what that means, but essentially with reverse TCP/IP, it means the system's going to call back to us. This is more effective for evading IDSs and firewalls. So we're going to go ahead and click enter. And now we are using that payload. And again, I'm going to clear the screen, bring it up to the top. And now we need to assign the options for this exploit and this payload. So we type in show options, and it's going to tell us what's required. So there are required items in here for the payload and for the exploit. And let me go ahead and get my highlighter. So these are the options up here for the exploit. The one that we have to set for the exploit is the host that we're attacking. So we need to put in the IP address of our Windows XP machine. And then for the payload, these are the options for that. And you're going to notice that everything is already assigned here. Sometimes not everything will be assigned. Typically it's going to be the L host, and you would have to add that into there. So the only thing we need to add is the IP address of the XP machine. So we're going to set the R host to 192.168.0.5. And you'll notice down here it shows that we set it, and we can show the options again, and now everything is set. So what's left to do next? Well, very simple. Type in the word exploit. And if we see Meterpreter, it means that we have a Meterpreter shell, which means we are now in that system. So let me actually pause the screen and get the Windows XP and this side by side. So give me 1 second. All right, so now I have the XP machine here, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to say this is the flag. So almost like this is capture the flag, even though it's not. So what do we want to do in here? Well, I don't need this open anymore. There are different commands that I want to run on here. And let me go ahead and resize Cherry Tree, because I am going to try to make this so we have this all together and viewable together. So you can see the commands that we do want to run on this. So first thing that I want to run is the Sys Info. And it's going to tell me the information regarding the system that we're on. It says the computer's name is Windows XP. If I right click over here, go to properties, if you remember for the computer name, we did, and why is it not showing here? Let me click there. There we go, WinXP. And it shows that this is Windows XP Service Pack 2, gives us some basic info. We can do ifconfig or ipconfig on a Windows, and it's going to give us the IP configuration information. So if we look at interface 2, this is the Ethernet connection, 192.168.0.5, and our subnet mask. Let's look at the idle time. It shouldn't be that high because I was just on there. But the idle time will tell me how long the user has been idle. So let me actually go to here and mess around with something. And let's run that again. And now it says only 2 seconds. So why is this important? Well, let me clear the screen real quick. It's important because, and I guess clear doesn't work in Meterpreter, but that's okay. It's important because the longer somebody's been away from the computer, then the less likely it is that they're going to come back and that they're going to see you hacking into their system. So let's do another command. Get system. And what does that do? Well, I just escalated my privileges up to the system administrator on this system. Let's do a print working directory. I didn't have that down there, but we are in the C Windows System 32 folder. So if I do cd ... that's going to take me back to CD Windows. Let's do an ls-l, and let's take a look at everything in the Windows. So this is going to list everything in there, but let's go back even further. And let's do an ls-l again. And you're going to notice that we have gone even further back. And let's give this a little more space. And let's go into Documents and Settings. And let's go into Admin. And again, I'm just doing an ls-l so I can see everything. Let's go to Desktop. And you're going to notice flag.txt, and let's actually get rid of that extra extension because I don't have it set to show. And there we go. And let's do a concatenate for that, and you're going to notice there's nothing in there. So let's say let's save that. Let's close it. Let's do this again. And congrats, you have access. And what we can actually do, there is a download command. And I can actually download that file. So if we take a look, if we scroll down, here's that file. I just downloaded that file onto my system. So I'm able to browse around, I'm able to see the directory structure, I'm able to download files. I can actually upload files as well if I want. If I wanted to upload some sort of malware, some sort of keylogger, or whatever, I can upload it. So there's a download command, there's an upload command. Let's do the hash dump. And here's the hash dump. So everything that I talked about, let's copy that. Let's go ahead and let's do this the easy way. So I'm just going to save this into the desktop, and I'm going to call this XP _ hash dump. So you'll notice that here's that root account we created, here's that puppet account we created, and here's the admin account that we created as well. So all of those, and I felt like I heard my phone buzz, but I guess not. So we can use that for another video. And now let's do the fun stuff. So you'll notice that there's one webcam here, USB video device. Let's see if we can actually stream that webcam. And well, here's that other webcam. Quite crazy that we're actually able to do that, right? I mean, let me pan this across my office. See my guitar, see my desk and everything else. And you can actually see the webcam, and the webcam turned on right here in front of me. So just a little bit of webcam fun there. And I exited out of Meterpreter. So that's our quick introduction to Metasploit and exploiting our Windows XP system. We did quite a lot. There are some, I'm still in Metasploit, but I want to go ahead and talk a bit further about what we did. So we did more than just this, right? We also used the print working directory command, we did the ls command to list the contents, and we used the download command to download the file. We also did the concatenate command as well. So there was quite a bit that we did, and there's a lot that we can do. And it's just simply using the Metasploit framework and its built-in functionality. So don't need to be in Metasploit anymore. Let's close it down. Hopefully this was insightful. I mean, we were able to get a dump of the file here that has the username and the password hashes that we will crack, which is pretty easy. And we were also able to download the flag file, which is right here. And let me see if I can actually scroll that over. So if I wanted to download other files, I could do that as well. So we could kind of deem this a capture the flag as well. But it shows you that if a system is exploitable with a vulnerability, and the vulnerability has a very high likelihood of being successful in Metasploit, then it's not that hard to break into these systems. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you at the next one. Take care. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you guys at future videos. Take care.